I want to start by thanking you for agreeing to do this and welcome, a very warm welcome to Musical. And thank you so much for coming on board to Musical for this short series that I'm doing called Keeping It Real, where I'm going to be interviewing some young musicians who are from different parts of the world, and they are exploring their potential in Hindustani music. So here we go, and welcome.
Thank you, Kalyani. Thank you so much for having me. Very much an honor to be invited on your show. I've enjoyed the past interviews a lot, so it's nice to be here with you.
I'm so glad.
Mm.
So let's get into the video. I want to start by asking you about your name. So
Mm.
your stage name is Joel Veena, and I
Right.
want to understand what inspired you to take this name up, and how did you choose this name?
Certainly. Yeah, so my surname is Eisenkramer. And I come from a family of musicians, and it is frequently a problem for us with promoters pronouncing our name correctly. And it just, Joel Eisenkramer, it's kind of a mouthful. Actually, in India, nobody has any difficulty with this name because there are much longer names. But so I'm always, my friends were suggesting you need a shorter name and more snappy sort of name. And we thought of Joel Veena as a way of, showing that really, Joel Eisenkramer came to India in 2007, started studying Indian classical music, took on this instrument, and that person is changed forever by the music. Is that my life took a dramatically different turn from that point, and I really dedicated most of my time and energy to studying this music. And so while other artists or some artists we can say are naming instruments after themselves, like when they innovate or they invent something, I'm not an inventor of the instrument, but the instrument changed my identity, and that journey changed my identity. So when I take this name Joel Veena, that's kind of acknowledging that I am transformed by the music, and also I like it too. I like the way it looks. Joel Veena is very snappy. I can sign like JV. There's that aspect too that I.
That this thought itself is so profound that the instrument has changed you to become Joel Veena, and that's really inspiring. So I now want you to talk more about your instrument. So let me just introduce to the viewers of Musical that Joel is a Indian slide guitar player. So I am not sure how many of the viewers of Musical must have seen this instrument. It's a slide guitar, like a Hawaiian guitar or something.
Hmm.
Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Exactly.
And it is played with one this well, I don't know what is it called. It's
We
like a
call it
round.
a steel bar. A
It's
steel
like a
bar.
round steel bar,
Yeah. Uh,
and then so it is the so on that long this thing on the guitar, you play it with that steel bar. So that's where you fix the notes, and where you produce the sound, it's on the right hand side where the playing area of the guitar is, and that's where you produce the sound. So
exactly.
that's the instrument that Joel plays, and it's actually a blend of a guitar, which is tailor made for playing Hindustani music.
Hmm.
So now I want you to talk more about the instrument as to where did this come from? What is your idea of this sound, the sound that it produces, because it's a very unique sound. It's a sound which is not familiar to Hindustani music. It's not a particularly Hindustani music sound like a sitar or a sarangi. It is a new. It's a new. It's an invention. It's a new thing. So please tell
That's
us
right.
about instrument.
That's right. So, history of Indian slide guitar is it came to India via Hawaii. Well, Hawaiian guitars. A lot of people in the older generation in India will be familiar with Hawaiian guitar because in the 1930s and 40s, a musician by the name of Tao Moy came from Hawaii to Kolkata, and he had a residency with his family. His whole family were musicians. They had a residency at one of the big hotels in Kolkata, and Hawaiian music became extremely popular all over the world, and India was no exception. It was kind of like a craze, almost like now, everyone's into like TikTok and cat videos and stuff like that. But this was Hawaiian guitar craze from just one side of the globe to the other. Everyone was fascinated to hear this Hawaiian music, and Tao Moy played on a Hawaiian guitar. He played it flat like this with a steel bar in one hand and some picks in his other hand. There's also an instrument called a lap steel, which is very similar to what he played. But people in Kolkata really loved this instrument. They started playing Hawaiian music. There were Hawaiian bands that formed of people living in Kolkata playing Hawaiian music. And eventually, around, I guess, late 50s, maybe mid 60s, an artist by the name of Bridge Bhushan Kabra picked up a Hawaiian guitar. He was friends with Ali Akbar Khan Saab and started as a hobby trying to play some ragas on it. And Ali Akbar Khan basically told him, you're going to have to make some small changes to the instrument to be able to do this properly, to really be able to play the Tantrakari style, means, Allah, Jor, Jala. So Brij Bhushan Kabra added Chikari, and he strung the guitar in a slightly different way. And he innovated a technique using a mizrab, sitar mizrab, on his right hand. And he innovated this technique, which really, even though he had the Chikari, it really was following the vocal style more. Is that he would pick extremely forcefully with his right hand and then make a lot of notes and sliding with the left hand. And so he was the first innovator. After him, the guitar became a little bit more popular. People like Pandit Vishwa Mohan Bhatt, Pandit Barun Kumar Paul. These artists did further innovations like adding tarap or taraf, sympathetic strings to the guitar. And then you had full range of sympathetic strings like a sitar or a sarod. And that's happening, in the late 60s and early 70s. The guitars that we play now are like an evolution of that, largely thanks to the genius craftsman from West Bengal, Baba Sindhu Biswas, who worked with people like Vishwa Mohan Bhatt, Debashish Bhattacharya, Brij Bhushan Kabra. He worked closely with the artists to change the design of the guitar to really take on Indian classical music with more justice, I guess you could say. And he did things like, my instrument has a hollow neck, which and it's hollow, from the tip of the neck to the base of the body, much like a sitar or a sarod. And why we have to do that is because of the sustain. is in as a lot of people may know, in Hindustani music, is the notes are long and stretchy, and there is ornament and everything. And a normal guitar, you pluck and immediately it falls away, because essentially this is a percussion instrument. You are percussing on strings. You're applying force to strings, they're going boom, and you're getting some sound. But now we have to sustain the note, try to follow the vocal style, try to do justice to concepts like andalan, shruti, gamak, meend. All of these are required for the music. We can't say, oh, the instrument, it's not so good at producing gamak, so we just don't play gamak. That wasn't the approach of Baba Sindhu Biswas, is he took each of these problems and addressed that in his design. So we also have tumba at the end, like sitar and sarod, which is a gourd or made out of wood to increase sustain. And yeah, now they typically have around 20 strings with 4 main playing strings. My instrument has 4 main playing strings, sa pa, or if I'm playing, like Bhageshri or Rageshri, I'll be sa ma. Then 1 very high chikari, 3 drone strings, which are usually sa or pa, sometimes maybe a da in there, and 12 taraf, 12 sympathetic strings underneath.
Okay.
So that's a little bit about the instrument, of a very storied history.
It's complicated but very interesting to know about this. So, you are currently learning from Pandit Alok Lahiri,
That's right.
and but we want to know about, how exactly did you come in touch with this instrument, and how did you start taking the talim of this instrument? Because even though you were a musician always, how did you come in touch with this particular instrument and this kind of music? And what inspired you to take it up? And how did your journey from that point till now has been?
Wow. It's a good story. It's a long story. I'll try to make it condensed too. But essentially, what happened was in 2007, I was like 19 or 20 years old. I was attending university in California at the University of California, Santa Cruz, and I was studying literature. And I had an opportunity come to me to study literature in India, in Delhi, and study Hindi literature in translation. And it was a 6-month program. I had in my mind basically just that I had not been to India, and it sounded very interesting. And I had taken a lecture course about Indian music, kind of, we call it elective course, which means that it's not necessarily in your field of study, but you're required to take these kind of general courses. And so it was a very general course about Indian music, but it caught my fancy, and it was really fascinating to me. A lot of stories about the oral tradition of the music, about the students and their masters practicing 8 and 10 and 12 hours a day, about people playing and praying for rain, playing Megh Mohar and having it rain, and Tansen, and the story of Rag Deep. All of these things caught my imagination. And so when the opportunity to study literature in India came up, I applied and I was accepted. And so we went to Delhi, and the first thing they did was take us out from Delhi and send us to Mussoorie, where there was a Hindi language school. And then we did 1 month of Hindi language intensive. And anyone who's been to Mussoorie or any hill station in India, the hill stations are all pretty similar as the roads are like extremely steep. So always you're walking like this or you're going down like this and you walk next to these shops, and the shop window first, it's down here at your side, and as you're walking up the hill, it comes like this. And so I was walking after some class and I see in this shop window down low, I see a CD, a music CD of Pandit Vishwa Mohan Bhatt, who I did not know who that was at that time. But he is sitting there on the cover with this incredible looking guitar like instrument. And I can't really understand what's happening with it. He's sitting in his lap and it has so many strings. And so I go inside, I bought the CD and I took it back to our guest house and I listened to it on the portable CD player that I had with me at that time. And that was a moment of like epiphany, or just it was a cosmic moment, you could say. Like I was enraptured by the music. I couldn't understand what I was listening to. I couldn't understand like the tabla versus the tambura versus the slide guitar or anything what was happening, but I was completely fascinated. And I listened to that CD. It's called Classics for Pleasure. And it's on streaming now. You can find this. It has Rag Gavati,
Gawati.
Yeah, Gawati, Kirvani, and Desh on this album. And I listened to this all night long. I didn't sleep, and then that made me decide, I have to learn this music. And I was extremely fortunate to have taken that lecture course and to hear the stories about the students like seeking their gurus. And so that was already in my imagination. And so I knew what I needed to do. I knew that I had to find a teacher to be able to learn this music. So returned to Delhi, started trying to look for a teacher. I'm looking around the music faculty of Delhi. Eventually I find it. It's a hot day. I'm asking the receptionist, who can teach me Indian slide guitar, Mohan Veena. And she's saying, no, we do sarod and tabla and sitar, vocal, these like normal type of instruments if you want to learn that. And so I was very dejected, and I'm turning away from the desk. And at that moment, a man comes walking down this hallway with his wild hair blowing behind him and his white kurta. And he says, I am Pandit Subhash Nirwan, great tabla player of Delhi. I will help you. And I'm saying, wow. And I'm learning Hindi, and so I say, wow, shabash. And he says, no, shabash is what you say to a child. To me, you say, kya baat hai? And that was the great tabla maestro, Pandit Subhash Nirwan, who then really generously took me to his house. We jammed. I played this acoustic guitar. There's a video on YouTube actually of me as a 19 or 20-year-old playing with the Pandit Ji. An extremely genuine person. He didn't care. I mean, I don't know anything about music, and we were playing together at that time. His son, Pandit Subhash Nirwan's son, Suraj Nirwan, and his brother Puraskar Nirwan, then they helped me to meet my first teacher in Delhi, Dr. Ranjan Kumar, who is one of the first people to get PhD on Indian slide guitar at Delhi University. I believe he and Dr. Kamala Shankar were the first to receive this PhD. And I studied with Dr. Ranjan for about 9 years before meeting Guruji, who I study with now, Pandit Alok Lahiri.
It's so superb. Like, you know, all the way from the West, you come here, you listen to something that catches your mind and haunts you to take it up as a passion, and you travel so far with it. It's nothing short of inspiring. You
Thank
know,
you.
it's nothing short of inspirational. So, what I next want to understand is, you are staying so far away, you are practicing this music so far away.
Mm.
Um, there must be, I am imagining there must be two kinds of challenges you would be facing. First is very material challenges, like, you know, getting the spare parts of the instrument, getting authentic instruments, like authentic pieces of instrument. Or, you know, what if a string breaks? You know, getting all that, so making sure that all these glitches are taken care of. That's one kind of challenges. And the other kind of challenge that I can think of is that this sound is different. The sound is unique. It's not a
Mm.
very common sound that people are used to hearing. And the music is also not, uh, I mean, the your audience in the West is not familiar with the kind of music that you play. I mean,
Absolutely.
not very familiar with the music that you play.
Absolutely.
So, this is the other kind of challenge that you would be facing, practicing this music so far away from its, you know, original place of birth, which is India.
That's
So,
right.
I would like you to elaborate on both these kinds of challenges as to how, you know, are you facing them and how are you tackling with them?
Certainly. Yeah, good questions. They you're very right. Those are two distinct categories of challenges. The material aspect, that has been a long process for me of finding, like you use the example of breaking a string. So one thing, our instrument has the advantage of that it is a guitar in its basic form. And so the USA has some of the best guitar makers in the world and some of the best string manufacturers in the world. And so basically I can get the strings. What was always a problem for me in the past was the strings for the taraf, or the sympathetic strings, because they're very fine. It's like I use we'd say zero gauge strings. And this is not really a normal guitar type of string. And also you need a lot of it. Is it also for the main string? I could buy guitar strings. They're from a fixed length. Usually you buy them in a packet. You get one E string, one B string, one G string, one of each. But I only need four of them. So I was constantly paying a lot of money, getting a full package of strings, throwing two away, and using what they had. Um, what I have discovered now through all these years is there is a fantastic company called Mapes, Mapes, and they manufacture really high quality instrument wire and guitar strings of any thickness. And they are right here in the southern United States. And I own these giant coils of metal string, and that's what I am able to do. Is I ordered from them, and I have a big coil of every single gauge of string. So basically, like my house is like an instrument shop. So that is more or less sorted now. The other material challenge is that just maintaining the instrument is that it the Indian slide guitar doesn't have tension in it in the same way that a traditional guitar does. Because we're not pressing on the strings to make the note, we're sliding on top, and so the strings are floating above. They're under a lot of tension, and so a traditional luthier, who are the guitar makers, that's a great tradition. People are trained. They have apprenticeship to make these beautiful instruments. They take one look at the Indian slide guitar and they say this guitar should have folded in half with how much tension it has. They say I can't understand why it's not broken. And so they are still coming around. Like, they don't understand the structure of what Baba Sindhu was created and what this guitar is about. So they can't fix it, and they won't fix it if I have some broken part. And then the Indian instrument makers in the US mostly are familiar with sitar and sarod, which is also a different thing. Is that they take one look at Indian slide guitar and they say, hey, there's no gourd, there's no gourd, there's all these shorter strings. It's under a lot of tension. They also don't really know what to do with the instrument. And so basically I've just learned through trial and error. And I have spent hours and hours of, like pulling my hair. There'll be a buzz. A string will be one note, like como ga is a notorious one in the summertime here in the US. Is that como ga will start to buzz. And every time I'm playing, Bim Palasi and this beautiful phrase, Magaresa, it's buzzing very loudly on the ga. And then so I'm lifting things, I'm putting small bits of paper in, I'm adjusting, and that is that's just a process. I'm better at it than I was 10 years ago. I'm still not an expert. And so every year when I go to Kolkata, I try to make sure to bring my instrument to the experts at Concord, at Baba Sindhu's shop. Now his daughter is running it, and try to get like a tune-up. But it's mostly just by trial and error, and I've learned the hard way. About the music, you're absolutely right, is that the sound is not familiar to audiences here. And so a lot of the project of when I perform in the US, what I am focused on is growing an audience. Because I'm coming into a performance space that is basically empty, especially in my corner of the US. I'm in Vermont. It's in the Northeast, so I'm close to centers of population like New York City and Boston that do, the great classical musicians, when they come and tour, they perform in these cities. But there's not really a scene, so to speak. Is that there are small groups of people who are knowledgeable and interested in this music, and then there is a wider genre of what is called in the US, we just call it world music. And so if somebody likes world music, they'll listen to West African funk, Ethiopian jazz, Mongolian throat singing, Ustad Shahid Parvez, Hindustani sitar, Shashank, and it's just all gets put in the same category. And what happens when you do that is that everybody's confused all the time. Everybody is just thinking like, oh, it's from another country, and so it's world music. And actually these musics are all completely distinct, as we'll all tell you, but this is kind of the state of the industry, I guess you would say, in the US. So a lot of my project when I perform is there has to be an explanatory aspect to it. is I perform a lot of lecture demonstrations. Like it's very typical that I will perform solo because also getting a good tabla player where I live is not the easiest. I've got some great friends now, but over the years it's been a struggle. Um, so a lot of times I will be invited to perform solo at a place like like a healthy living summit or a yoga studio or a library, uh, university, these type of spaces, or house concerts. These are the type of places that will often invite me. I'll perform solo, and what I'll do is describe, the process of alap, jor, and jala in a very simple way. Say first I'm invoking the rag. I'm going to play without rhythm, and I'm going to try to elaborate each note and phrase of this personality. As I like to describe a rag as a kind of a personality, like we're all getting to know a new person, come from very far away. So I'll play this, I'll explain this about a lot. Then this develops into the jor, which is again the same concept, but with a pulse and a rhythm. And that's very identifiable for people. So I'll be playing a lot, and then when I start the jor, I'll look around at everyone saying, and then they're like, oh, that's what he was saying, and it's very satisfying for them. Then after that, the jor increases in speed. I change the picking pattern, and that becomes the jala, the jor jala. And again, I will look up around the room to make eye contact with people and say, yeah, this is what I discussed earlier. And, this is a very simple, very basic explanation of the music, but this is the way that I am trying to grow the audience is by getting them informed beyond just, oh, this is from another country. Because that's not really what it's about. This music is very special and has a very unique role to play in our current time in terms of helping people to focus, helping to increase our attention spans, teaching us discipline, all of these type of things. So I'm trying to communicate that about the music in the ways that I know how, and grow the audience. That's the theme that I'm always thinking about.
Right. So, I mean, of course, this is of course one way that you can grow your audience by making them informed and explaining to them, elaborating to them what the music is.
Mm.
I was going through your website and I saw that you are also playing with a couple of bands.
Mm.
So, what is your experience on that front? Like, how does this music mix up or blend with other kinds of music? And what is your experience with it so far?
Yeah, it's been very interesting. One thing that I have started to do when I play with a band is that usually these are electric instruments with a drum kit, and it's very loud. And so there's really no place for Indian slide guitar on that stage. Is that in my opinion, when you amplify Indian slide guitar and starts to become electric sounding, the taraf and the chikari and everything, it's very chaotic and rough. It's very rough sounding. As Guruji would say, it's too rough. It's too rough. And so what I've done is I've created a way to modify just any basic guitar, electric guitar, acoustic guitar, any guitar. We can raise the strings on it with a piece of metal called a nut riser, and it's very cheap on Amazon and at music stores, maybe $5 or $6. You can raise the strings, use a slightly different string configuration. Then there's no chikari, there's no taraf. and I can still play flat on my lap and use techniques like Indian slide guitar, but I can render Western music in that way without compromising on the technique. Now, for my own music, I have been exploring ideas of fusion as a way of because there's like two ways to grow the audience, right? As we discussed earlier, is trying to educate people and let them know what are the exciting and wonderful things about the music, saying, here's the alap, here's the jor, pay attention next time, you can identify it on your own, that sort of thing. But then also I believe that like people like music that is not going to sound like Hindustani music. And so maybe how can I meet them over there where they're hanging out? Like how can I take this thing that I love and this music and bring it a little bit closer to their thing? So I will like I have a track on streaming that I'm calling Bhim, like short for Bhim Palasi, or the character from Mahabharata. And this is basically Rag Bhim Palasi with electronic accompaniment. And so I use this bundish, or this composition I created. It's in Ektal, it's in 12 beats, but it has electronic drums. And so you can enjoy this as a, as a groovy tune that is just grooving along, and it has that nice fat bass that people really like, and this very crispy electronic drum sound, which is very kind of invigorating, and people like to listen. They're very familiar with that sound from pop. But if they really pay attention and they dissect and they listen to, or when my friends who are classical musicians listen to, they can also enjoy it because I'm playing in sur and I'm playing in tall. I'm maintaining the ektal, despite the fact that it's it's a very subtle thing. So if you pay attention to the next layer underneath, you're rewarded for that. And that is the type of fusion music that I really enjoy making and am interested in making. And so you can get it on the surface, is that listen to it while you're cooking or riding a bicycle or hanging out with friends. And then if you want to go deeper, it's there. Whereas, the pop music, sometimes if you dissect some of these electronic drum parts, you say, wow, I'm pretty sure my little nephew can play this on this iPad or something like that. It's like extremely basic musically. And there's no like value judgment on that. That's just what it is. But what I'm interested in is, again, how to grow the audience and create music that'll get people connected with the ragas, connected with the classical music.
Right. So, so when we are while we are talking about growing the audience and getting more people to listen a particular kind of music, one thing that I feel that plays a huge role in this whole exercise is internet. In the last 20 years, it has changed the world like never before. And even more so after the invention of social media, it has been a boom. So, in fact, this interview is happening because of social media, to be very honest.
That's right.
So, so what I would like you to elaborate on is, how is the social media impacting the life of a musician? And B, how can social media be used as a tool? And then how can we impact social media as musicians? So both ways, how is it? How is each beneficial for the other?
Man, great question. Yeah. Social media, like I think all musicians will agree with this, social media has completely changed the game of like what we do and what we think about doing. Is that social media, for better or for worse, has is a part of our creative process. It's in there in our consciousness whenever we are, practicing or working on something new or playing a concert. We're always thinking like, oh, did somebody video that so that I can post it? Like, can you please, ask your wife to set up the tripod so that we get a good video of this? Or like, oh, just quickly do a reel, like do a reel of that Rela you just played, and we'll just put it on stories or something like that. So it's changed our behavior in a lot of ways, and it's changed our creative process. I would say largely not in the most positive way, because it's making us create content that is extremely short and basically not meaningless, but without context. And that is beneficial in the sense of a marketing angle. And then, that is a two-sided aspect. Is that in one ways we want to get our music out there. We want to, like I was saying, we want to meet people where they are. If people are consuming 15-second videos, then we would also like our videos to be in the queue of 15-second videos. And then on the flip side of that is that you can't confuse marketing for your art, and you don't necessarily create art for the purpose of marketing. And I think that's where a lot of people get a little bit mixed up, and it can be a little depressing and frustrating, actually, if you're just thinking about, oh, what song am I going to cover so that I can get 10,000 views and get my $4 in royalties or whatever measly money there is in that.
I was asking two questions. One, which you answered already, is that how is social media impacting the lives of musicians? And two,
Okay.
how can musicians use it as a tool
Oh
to
yeah.
reach a wider audience, or how can they make social media a more beautiful place by putting up some music or putting up something where they are impacting the social media. So it's a
Absolutely.
so that
Yeah,
was
I gotcha. I gotcha. Um, yeah, that's a wonderful way of putting it. Is how can we also contribute to social media? And it's a really exciting time in a way to be an independent artist, because we can really create something from scratch. Is that the previous paradigm um, in India, I believe it's the same. It was the same, and in the U.S. is that this technology of recording music and recording video, these things were prohibitively expensive. It's like reels of tape were, hundreds of dollars in previous year's currency, and there was no way that an individual of regular means could finance a recording project. And so it was the record labels and the production houses who determined what sort of content was out there in the market. And they did a pretty decent job. I mean, we have these amazing recording HMV, all these fantastic recordings and SaReGa and like that. But now we can, as artists, we can enter the market with something that is completely our own, and just put it right there alongside everything else, alongside top 40, alongside the classics. I mean it's such an honor. I mean, it's just the metadata or just the algorithm or whatever, but it's such an honor when I see like Spotify, people who like Joel Veena also listen to Pandit Ravi Shankar and Hari Prasad Chaurasia, and it's just like a who's who list, and I get to be right there. That's not necessarily a statement about the quality of my art, has more to do with the metadata and how we play similar styles of music. It's not saying that I'm not as good as them or that I am as good as them. That's not part of the equation. It's just this equal sort of space that has to do with code, algorithms, and the public about how much they are clicking on your thing. And so musicians have really taken advantage of this, and some have gotten great success by kind of playing on this popular what the public wants and then also pursuing their own art. Like you'll see this phenomenon of like Saraswati Veena covers of pop songs. And it's like we all have to kind of roll our eyes because it's gotten out of control at this point. So you've got Veena, Shape of You, you've got Veena, Thriller, and you've got Veena, Beatles, and everything. And so that's it. It's a little bit too much, but artists are able to sometimes pay their bills with this silly sort of frivolous type of material. You get 1 million views. That's not nothing. And so if you are able to create some sort of passive and consistent income from social media, from playing to the gallery, as some people will say, it usually is a negative sort of term, playing to the gallery. But the financial or the economic reality of that is that those artists are then freed up to do more riyaz and to produce higher quality art if they so choose. Sometimes what happens is that we get stuck in the whirlpool of kind of low quality content, and that becomes our job. And we'll see that too. And I don't know, it could be low quality content to me. Other people may think it's brilliant, but that is an opportunity for artists because of the internet and because of streaming, is that you don't actually have to play shows. If you are able to cultivate a following on the internet and create content that they love and that they're willing to reward you for. So that's almost like a throwback to the origins of this music, of Hindustani music, being in the Mughal courts and in the courts of the royal people, is that if they wanted to hear a tumri, you played a tumri, and they threw sacks of gold at you or jewelry and things like that. It's amazing how similar the live streaming concert format is to that. Because you've been on live stream, I'm sure. Is it you're singing your song, you're playing this piece of music, and then like the hearts and the likes and stuff are flying on some of the platforms. They fly up on the side of the screen, and the comments come zipping across. And I think of those scenes from those classic movies of the Baituks and the courtly musicians, of people going wah 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 and throwing gold at them. So there's that.
That is such a beautiful analogy that you've just drawn. And what I'm reminded of is a series that I did a while ago, which was named My Baap Rasikaho, which means dear audience in very simple words.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And in that, I had tried to explain as to how earlier we used to have patrons
Hmm.
for different kinds of music. So actually, if you look at the Gharana system, it flows from this patronage only, that who got patronage in which princely state. That's
That's
how the
right.
Gharanas came about. But
That's
even
right.
today, it's the same thing. Like, today the audience is your patron. Even
Hmm.
if you say that the concert is free and the people who are coming there are not buying tickets, it's the sponsors are looking at how many people are coming in.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
ultimately, it's the person who is listening to you is your patron. So
Very well put. And that makes me think of another way that musicians are really benefiting from the internet age is these digital patronage platforms. Is that these sites
yes,
like Patreon, and I have one through Bandcamp, And that's it's a really cool way to connect with your audience because people, they'll come to your concerts, but then they say, I want to support you more. I want more pictures. I want more videos. And so a patronage hub, artists are doing all kinds of exciting things like hosting podcasts that are just available to their subscribers who pay a small monthly amount. Or on mine, is I record, I'm pretty decent with music engineering, with audio engineering, and so I record a lot of my concerts. And so those who are subscribed and are paying patrons on my Bandcamp patronage hub, that's what I call it, the patronage hub, is they get all these concerts that they weren't necessarily able to attend to, and they get high fidelity recordings and they can listen to at home. And I don't really edit them. If I messed up a T-high or something like that on the stage, God forbid, then it's there in the recording. So they're not studio recordings, and that actually really is more interesting to people many times than the studio stuff. And so the internet is allowing artists and audiences to like have kind of a more involved and a little bit maybe more of an honest relationship about like what each of them want. Is that we can now just say, quite frankly, like I have a YouTube video that says, please subscribe to my patronage hub. It's $50 a year and you get all this stuff. And then the fans can be, yeah, quite frankly, I'm not that interested in your Spotify singles. I want to hear full concerts. And in the previous time, I think that we didn't address each other so plainly. And yeah, that's another benefit of the internet, I think.
That's absolutely right. So I think we are moving towards the final topic for the interview,
Great.
uh, which is future. So first is if you have any future projects coming up, if you want to announce them or something. That's
Yeah.
one. And the second part of it is how do you look at the future of this music?
Mm.
Because you also teach. So what is the kind of response that you're getting from your students? And with that, how are you analyzing or how are you perceiving the future of this music around the world?
Nice. I love talking about that. So yeah, first my own projects is I've got more concerts coming on this patronage hub, which I was describing. I just played this really fun concert with Jake Charkey, my friend Jake Charkey, who is also from my same area in Vermont. And he is a cello player who lived in Mumbai and studied with N. Rajam. And so he plays
Oh,
Gayaki Ang, beautiful cello. And he's I think 15 years of Talim or something. He's good. He's a little bit my senior. And then we played a concert together with my friend Mir Nakibal Islam, tabla, wonderful Farrukhabad style tabla player. And so that we have a recording of, and that's going to be available for my subscribers, unedited and in full length. And then I have a couple of just recordings that'll be available to the public in general coming out. I have an album called Interior Landscapes, which is two rags, a lop, with my friend Amit Singhal on Bansuri. Is that we met earlier this year in March. I was in Delhi and we rented an Airbnb close to the center of the city, and we just set up a bunch of microphones and we stayed inside and recorded ourselves for late into the night and early in the morning. And so I really like these recordings. There's no accompaniment, but great alap, bihag, and ahir bairov on
super.
that one. And And then I have one project with a poet, my friend Gordon Corstange, who writes wonderful poems, and we've been pairing his original poetry with rags. And so he is like reciting these poems, and I have matched a rag to the mood of the poem, and we're kind of freestyling back and forth. There's a
Wow, that
poet.
sounds so interesting.
Yay, thanks. That's good feedback, because I was also wondering, like, is anybody actually want to listen to this? I think it's really cool, but there's a poet named Robert Bly who did this a lot. But it wasn't Hindustani music. It was more just like spontaneous improvisation music. And we're kind of continuing in that tradition because Gordon, the poet, played bamboo flute with Robert Bly on tour. And so that's kind of part of this continuation. Um, then I hope to play more concerts soon. It's so slow, especially in the US, for concerts to be picking up. I know they're happening in India, so I will be performing touch wood in Mumbai, Delhi, Kolkata, December and Jan, like I usually do. But it hasn't been very usual the last couple of years, so we just have to see what's happening. And then the future of the music, I said this a little bit earlier, but I really truly believe that this Hindustani classical music has a very special role, is a really helpful tool and music in our present time, the situation that we are in right now in 2022. It is a music, because of its form and its structure of alap evolving into jor, or evolving into the next phrase, the slow composition in the vocal music. This process of going from very simple to more ornate, more intense, to a climax. This is a very therapeutic process to go through and to listen to, especially for a population, and I mean the whole world population basically, is that we are consuming increasingly smaller and smaller bits of information and art, just like the computers that we're using, is that we're making them faster and more powerful, and so now they can do 64 billion bits per second and then 128 billion, and it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And so with that, also our attention spans have been shrinking, and also our ability to focus is really different than previous generations. I mean, when you study Hindustani music, you become in awe of what the human mind is capable of storing. Because someone like my Guruji, Pandit Alok Lahiri, inside of his head is an seems to me, inexhaustible amount of bundish, tons, materials, alankars, ornaments, everything. And it's like, it's a living body of knowledge too. In the way that it works, it's not like a computer where like I could, it's so weird, it's just getting a little bit silly. Like if I could like search his brain or something, I can't, like that's not how it works. I can't like Google into Guruji's brain and like, oh, I want a Bundish and Puriya Dhanashri in Ektal. So I can't be like, and he doesn't respond that way either. You don't just ask your teacher like, hey, I want 6 tons in Marwa, give them to me. And it's like, no, that's not how we learn. But if you are learning from him, or maybe when we're discussing something, maybe a recording comes up, or I ask him about a recording, then it kind of jogs his brain, and then it all this material starts to bloom out, and it really makes you wonder at the human intellect and the memory. And in the previous time, I think that the memory devices for being able to store all this information, the oral tradition, what we call Guru Shisha Parampara, this is something extremely powerful and very critical in terms of our own brains. And it's not about it was better then and it's worse now, or it was worse then and it's better now. It's just about evolution and continuation of these amazing abilities and continuing to cultivate these. And because why not? This is amazing power. It's excellent that I can just have the device. I don't have to remember anybody's mobile number. I don't even know. I don't have to remember where I'm going even. Like I don't have to know where the store is. I could type in on Google the same, and it could guide me there. And so that's all good. But this amazing human faculty of memory that the Hindustani music like trains specifically and increases by the way that we learn, in the oral tradition. It's like taking the one phrase of alap, you say it's 3 notes, and then your teacher might say, okay, but do it a different way. Then you have to think, okay, it's only 3, so I could be 1 2 3, I could be 3 2 1, I'd be 2 1 3. Okay, that's very basic. Then your teacher will be like, yeah, but what if you don't spend the same time on each note? If you put different emphasis on 1 2 3, 1 2 3. This is like a very basic way of explaining this, but it's like very powerful stuff for our brains, and it makes me really happy when I practice it. So that's part of it too, is that a lot of us are struggling with depressions, not being motivated, feeling sick, feeling overwhelmed by the state of the world. It's like, how can we possibly have the faculty to deal with the world that we live in? It's like, I'm just too weak, I'm too small of a person, these problems are too big. It's like, well, the concept of riyaz in Hindustani music, riyaz practice, disciplined, methodical, systematic practice, this directly addresses this problem. And we can apply these principles of riyaz to anything in our lives. So that's future of Hindustani music is, I want to let everyone know how great it is, how great it's gonna make us all feel when we listen to it, how rewarding it is when we start to understand, and about the actual, not quantifiable, but you can feel it, the benefit of listening to this music. And I guess just the last thing is that people should not, it's just a different type of music than all the other music that we listen to. And it's not better, it's not worse, it's just different. It has a different effect than listening to a Bollywood song or listening to a mariachi. And all music has a different effect, but Hindustani music especially, almost like a therapeutic type of effect.
All right, Joel, thank you so much once again for joining. This was a very insightful session for me, and I'm sure it's going to be so for the viewers of musical. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Thank you once again for coming on board for this short series, and for responding to my small effort of whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm trying to do.
You're doing great. Keep it up. I think you're heading for a lot of subscribers if you are making such, insightful and interesting content. And thank you so much for having me on. It's always like when I get invited by knowledgeable people, by other musicians and things like that, it's like really nice thing for me because I'm coming from far, as they say. So that it makes me feel very good. Thanks so much.
I am too flattered by this because you just called me knowledgeable.
I've seen your other interviews and heard you sing. I know you know something, more than one thing.
I'm just too flattered at this point of time. So, and also it's an appeal to the viewers of musical. Please let me know how you found this whole video. And if you have anything to say, if you have any questions for Joel or for me, put them in the comment section. I'm linking all the relevant links in the description so you can go and see what we are doing. You can see what Joel is doing. I'm sure most of you have must have already subscribed to Joel wherever he is present. He's got an insane number of subscribers everywhere. So, but anyway, those of you who haven't, you should go and subscribe to him everywhere. Okay.
Hey, thank you, and also everyone listening to this interview, make sure you get that wherever it is, that subscribe button down in the corner, too.
E- Yeah, so do that. Just do as Joel says.
Mm.
Okay. So,
Great. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you all so much.
all right. Thank you so much. Bye bye.